Ireland, and for some reason or other, well, actually, the first wine we had, the first two wines, were made by a Martinez, so he's definitely not Irish, but from here on out, it's Irish all the way. Yeah, right, exactly. For some unknown reason, everybody else is an Irishman here. And the last guy, the guys that Randy's going to talk about, Owen Rowe, that Owen Rowe family is O'Reilly on one side, and I can't remember what but there's like O something, it's two O's. This one is also O'Shea Scarborough. Both of these guys are definitely not from any place south of the American border. And they are, younger guys in their 30s. They are, they found their interest in wines in different ways. They are both wine reps. So these are the kind of guys that, there's a big company that distributes wines, and they'll have maybe, 2 or 3 different importers in their portfolio. So maybe they'll have 150 wines or 300 wines, whatever, depending on how big the book is. And these wine reps come in and they bring you the samples from their particular portfolio to taste in an effort to sell them. And so if you get a job like that, I mean, a lot of people start and they don't know too much about wine. That's pretty obvious in some cases. But as you work at it, if you enjoy the job, and probably if you're successful at it, you get to know a lot because, as I say, there'll be, maybe 50 or more different producers, and they can be from all over the world. So, if you really take it seriously, you've got an opportunity to try all these different wines. And a lot of these guys, or many of them, do get more serious about it. Some of them try to get Masters of Wine degrees. Some of them become sommeliers. And some of them, like these two guys, become winemakers. And so everybody that we have today, with the exception of the first producer, buys grapes. Most people in this country, and actually the first producer does own a small vineyard that he purchased a couple years ago. So things must be going pretty well for him. And the reason that I say that is because the main reason that a lot of smaller wineries in this country don't own their own property is because property in wine country, no matter where it is, I mean, unless it's like in Iowa or something, is like really expensive. And so in Europe, I mean, one of the reasons, like sometimes we'll go, how come we've got a wine from Portugal and we're selling it for like $8? And that wine had to be grown, and the guys that grew it had to make money. Then they sell it to the importer guy, and this is the shortest route. There can be a couple extra guys. They sell it to the importer. Then the importer sells it to maybe somebody else that has a portfolio, and then he sells it to a distributor. The distributor sells it to us, and we sell it to you, and it's still like $8 including tax. It's like, it seems impossible that you could even get an empty bottle to this country for that amount of money. So it's interesting that how they can do that, but the reason is a lot of these guys have owned, their family has owned the property for 5 generations, and all of that stuff is covered. Here it's really expensive to own property. So what these guys do is, how much money they have, they can get together, they'll buy grapes, and they'll go to different vineyards, and certain vineyards have higher profiles and a higher level of success, so those grapes are going to cost more. So when you start out, a lot of times you can't get the best grapes. But these guys now, pretty much everybody here has gotten to the point where they're successful enough to source their fruit from some pretty good places. So these guys, and this one actually is not from any one particular vineyard, but it's all from Columbia Valley, so it's different places where they could probably get the best fruit for the money. It's a blend like you would get from Châteauneuf-du-Pape, so it's got Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre. This one is predominantly Mourvedre. Generally speaking, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, you'd probably have it predominantly be Grenache, but it's that same blend. It's the same kind of blend that you'll find all through southern France, with the exception of maybe Provence on the far east. But most of the southern France grows these grapes because they grow very successfully there, and And so this is a little bit unusual because a lot of the wines, a lot of our domestic wines grew up, and we talked about scores before. The wine growers kind of get an idea of what the critics like, and so if you want to be popular, run with the cool kids, then you make the kind of wine that the teacher likes. And so a lot of people in this country, and it's very easy to make wines that are real high in alcohol and almost sweet and really densely textured and heavy, because in warm climates, like if you go to Australia, you look at the wines there, they're all very high in alcohol. It's very difficult to not make them that high in alcohol. So originally, and even to this day, a lot of the wines from Washington State, where they were growing things originally like Cabernet, they were mostly growing Bordeaux varietals, and they were going for this really big, powerful style. And some of the guys are growing Syrah, and again, they were going for that big, powerful style. But I think we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years a real change in some people's mentality. And a lot of the new wineries and new winemakers coming up are going for another style, because we get a lot of people that come in and they look at a bottle and they'll go, instead of like the reviewers like those big wines, probably because they taste 100 wines a day, and so by the time you get to the last wine, the only ones that taste good are the ones that have like 50% alcohol or something. So, but people will pick it up and they'll go, oh, that's 14.5. I don't want that much alcohol. I get headaches from it, or I just don't like it, or whatever. So a lot of people are going the other direction now. I think all of these